Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of antediluvian civilization. Is there geological evidence for a lost world before the flood? Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. 12,900 years ago, something happened. The Ice Age ended, not gradually, but with a violence that left its mark in the geological record on every continent. Temperatures shifted by up to 10 degrees Celsius in decades. Sea levels that had been more than 100 meters lower than today rose and drowned vast coastal plains that had been habitable land for thousands of years. Dozens of large animal species went extinct within centuries. And right at the beginning of this catastrophe, around 11,600 years ago, humans at Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey were building the world's first known monumental architecture: complex stone circles with carved reliefs of animals and abstract symbols. Hunter-gatherers, according to the accepted timeline. People without cities, writing, or agriculture. Graham Hancock, best-selling author and now the subject of a Netflix documentary series, argues that Göbekli Tepe proves the accepted timeline is wrong, that a sophisticated civilization existed before the catastrophe and seeded the myths and knowledge that later produced Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Indus Valley. Mainstream archaeology disagrees firmly. But the geological evidence for the catastrophe itself is not in dispute. The question is what, if anything, it destroyed. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the broader phenomenon of lost civilizations, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. What separates a civilization from a collection of villages? Not technology alone, but organization. The capacity to coordinate thousands of people toward shared goals, to store and transmit knowledge across generations, to build institutions that outlast individuals. These are the hallmarks archaeologists look for when they define a civilization, and for most of the 20th century, the oldest examples they could identify dated to around 3,500 BC in Mesopotamia and Egypt. But that benchmark has been steadily eroding. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, discovered in the 1990s and excavated since, consists of massive stone circles with elaborately carved pillars depicting animals, abstract symbols, and human figures. It dates to at least 10,000 BC, roughly 6,000 years before Stonehenge, and older than the invention of pottery or agriculture in the conventional sequence. Someone built it. Someone organized the quarrying, transport, and precise placement of limestone pillars weighing up to 20 tons. Someone knew what they were building and why. That level of coordinated effort implies a society more complex than any model of 10,000 BC predicted. Göbekli Tepe is not alone. Every few years, a new site expands the timeline further. Ancient stone structures in Indonesia have been dated to 25,000 years ago. Complex astronomical alignments have been found at sites in Africa predating Egypt by millennia. The human story is older, richer, and more turbulent than the standard narrative allows. When we look at lost civilizations, we are not chasing fantasy. We are attempting to recover chapters of a history far longer than any currently recognized textbook will tell. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding antediluvian civilization is their geological evidence for a lost world before the flood is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The Younger Dryas was a rapid cooling event lasting from approximately 12,900 to 11,700 years ago, during which temperatures in some regions dropped by up to 10 degrees Celsius within decades, before rebounding even more sharply at the Younger Dryas termination. Sea levels rose approximately 120 meters from their ice age maximum to modern levels over a period of roughly 10,000 years, drowning vast areas of continental shelf that were dry and habitable land during the preceding glacial maximum. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey began construction approximately 11,600 years ago, immediately after the Younger Dryas termination, and is the world's earliest known monumental stone architecture by several thousand years. Its builders were anatomically modern humans who, by conventional archaeological understanding, had not yet developed agriculture or permanent settlements. The site's sophistication, carved stone pillars, figurative reliefs, deliberate burial under fill, forced a revision of what pre-agricultural humans were capable of. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine the Black Sea flood hypothesis, proposed by oceanographers William Ryan and Walter Pittman in 1997, describes a catastrophic inflow of Mediterranean saltwater into what was then a smaller freshwater lake basin, the ancestral Black Sea, occurring approximately 600 years ago. Ryan and Pittman proposed this event was the origin of multiple flood myths. The event itself has been confirmed by ocean core sampling, but the dating, 600 years ago, not 12,900 years ago, does not align with the Younger Dryas catastrophe. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods, published in 1995 and revised subsequently, argues that a technologically sophisticated civilization, he describes it as maritime and scientifically advanced, existed before 12,000 BC and was destroyed by the Younger Dryas catastrophe. Survivors, he argues, carried knowledge to later civilizations, explaining structural and mythological similarities between Egypt, Mesopotamia, and pre-Columbian America. His 2019 book, America Before, updated the argument, incorporating the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, IDI, proposed by Firestone and colleagues in 2007 attributes the Younger Dryas cooling to a cosmic impact or airburst event approximately 12,900 years ago. Evidence cited includes platinum anomalies, nanodiamonds, magnetic spherules, and sharked quartz found at a 12,900-year-old sediment horizon at multiple sites across North America, Europe, and the Middle East. The hypothesis remains scientifically contested. Some laboratories have replicated the findings, others have not, and the debate is ongoing in peer-reviewed literature. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Hancock's Netflix documentary series, Ancient Apocalypse, released in 2022, drew an audience of millions and became Netflix's most-watched documentary series in its opening weeks. The Society for American Archaeology wrote an open letter to Netflix criticizing the series for misrepresenting the archaeological record and dismissing indigenous peoples' own histories of their civilizations. Hancock has debated professional archaeologists, including Flint Dibble, publicly. No physical trace of a pre-12,000 BC civilization, cities, writing, metal tools, DNA signatures, has been identified by any excavation. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain antediluvian civilization. Is there geological evidence for a lost world before the flood? This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that a technologically sophisticated pre-flood civilization existed before 12,000 BC, was destroyed or severely disrupted by the Younger Dryas catastrophe, and survivors ceded the knowledge and mythological frameworks of later civilizations. Hancock's hypothesis, popular but opposed by mainstream archaeology. No physical evidence of such a civilization has been found. Its proposed existence relies on structural similarities between myths and monuments that most archaeologists attribute to independent parallel development. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the Younger Dryas was triggered by a cosmic impact that devastated a Pleistocene civilization, destroying its physical record, the ID as applied by Hancock and others. The hypothesis's scientific status is genuinely contested. Platinum anomalies and nanodiamonds have been confirmed by some researchers at multiple sites, but other laboratories have failed to replicate key findings, and the mechanism and scale of any impact or airburst remain under debate in the peer-reviewed literature. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that no pre-12,000 BC civilization existed. Göbekli Tepe and similar sites prove that pre-agricultural humans were cognitively and organizationally sophisticated. But sophistication is not civilization, the mainstream archaeological position. The convergences between ancient cultures are better explained by shared human psychology and independent solutions to common problems than by a lost teacher civilization. The absence of any physical trace over 12 millennia of subsequent occupation is decisive evidence against the hypothesis. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding antediluvian civilization, is there geological evidence for a lost world before the flood, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes: Göbekli Tepe is the strongest empirical argument that pre-agricultural humans were capable of complex organized construction far earlier than the traditional timeline suggested. However, it is hunter-gatherer ritual architecture, not evidence of a literate, urban, or maritime civilization. The site was built by people who had not yet domesticated crops or animals. It demonstrates cognitive and social complexity. It does not demonstrate the kind of civilization Hancock proposes was lost in the Younger Dryas catastrophe. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented platinum anomalies at a 900-year-old sediment horizon have been confirmed at sites across North America, Europe, and the Middle East by multiple independent research groups. Nanodiamonds, potential indicators of high-temperature impact events, have also been reported. However, other research groups have failed to replicate the nanodiamond findings, and the platinum signal could have multiple explanations. The IDI remains an active and unresolved scientific debate, not consensus. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed. LiDAR remote sensing is revealing new ancient sites regularly, including previously unknown Mayan cities, Cambodian urban complexes beneath jungle, and earthwork geometries across the Amaze. None of these discoveries predate 12,000 BC in any civilizational sense. The Black Sea flood, confirmed by ocean core data, occurred 600 years ago and likely contributed to Mesopotamian flood myths, but does not support the specifically antediluvian civilization hypothesis, whose proposed destruction predates it by 5,000 years. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away. and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding antediluvian civilization. Is there geological evidence for a lost world before the flood? Now, we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Ancient Apocalypse became Netflix's most-watched documentary series of its launch week in 2022 and triggered a formal protest from the Society for American Archaeology. Graham Hancock has debated archaeologist Flint Dibble on the Joe Rogan Experience, reaching tens of millions of listeners. The idea remains scientifically contested, neither confirmed nor dismissed. LIDAR is transforming ancient site discovery, but has not found anything predating 12,000 BC in a civilizational sense. The public appetite for lost civilization narratives is enormous and shows no signs of declining. The evidence for the catastrophe is real. The evidence for what it destroyed is entirely absent. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of antediluvian civilization. Is there geological evidence for a lost world before the flood? From the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of antediluvian civilization ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle, it is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process, and the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.